Let me tell you something about silence. It's not the absence of sound, it's the weight of being forgotten. I used to think the world would come rushing in to fill the quiet when Sam died, that the phone would ring, that someone would knock, that grief would feel like noise. But it doesn't. It feels like dust. It settles. And then it stays. 65. That's how old I was the last time someone touched my arm and meant it. Not a pat, not a doctor's hand meant it. That Tuesday, the microwave hummed like a bored mosquito as I picked at a half-warm lean cuisine, chicken Alfredo. Again, Mr. Pickles, my aging tabby, watched me from the couch like he, too, had lost faith in everything. Then the doorbell rang. Twice my heart did this little flutter, like a muscle remembering how to move. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, glanced at the mirror, lipstick faint, roots showing, cardigan hanging off one shoulder like a sigh, and opened the door. Sophie, I beamed, my granddaughter, my summer visit, my little reminder that I hadn't completely drifted from the map of my family's life. And then I saw him tall, broad, black t-shirt stretched across a chest, built like it was sculpted in rebellion. Eyes sharp, buzz cut like he wanted the world to know he didn't have time for nonsense. He stood just behind Sophie, hands in pockets, wearing the kind of calm that made you nervous. Sophie's voice cut in, light and a little too fast. Graham, this is Jayden, my boyfriend. Boyfriend. My smile cracked. Sophie elbowed me lightly. Please don't freak. Mom and Dad can't know yet. Oh, I knew. Her parents, my daughter Melissa, and that rigid, white-collar cardboard she married would combust. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was looking at Jayden, at his hands rough, capable, the kind that fix things, the kind that 3 years of stillness burst open inside me like a fault line. So I hugged him. And I swear, hugging Jayden felt like standing under a storm that hadn't decided whether it wanted to destroy you or save you. He didn't move. Sophie laughed nervously. Mr. Pickles yowled. I stepped back, but my fingers lingered, solid, real, warm. Our eyes met. He didn't smile, not really. He just looked. And something shifted, a flicker, a hush. I leaned in, dropped my voice low, smoky, playful with an edge I hadn't used in years. You a fixer, Jayden. His brow arched. Sophie choked. Graham, relax, I said, letting go. But not before I caught the blush crawling up his neck. 3 years of silence. And suddenly, this, not noise, not chaos, but possibility. Let me tell you something about silence. It doesn't echo. It presses. It creeps in like fog and settles into the corners of your life until you stop noticing it's there. And the worst part, no one else hears it. Just you. Tuesday was chicken Alfredo day. Again. The kind that comes frozen and forgettable. The microwave beeped like it had given up on being urgent. I stabbed at the limp pasta with the same energy I gave to most things these days. Mr. Pickles let out a wheezy meow from the windowsill, not even bothering to stand, just old eyes blinking, judging. It wasn't supposed to be a remarkable day. But that's the thing with silence. It doesn't ask for permission before it's broken. The doorbell rang. Once, then again. Quicker, my fork paused midair. For a moment, I thought maybe it was a mistake. A neighbor, a delivery, a wrong address. But then my heart did this ridiculous flutter, like a candle catching wind. I wiped my hands on my robe, half expecting nothing. But when I opened the door, Sophie, I exhaled the name like a prayer. There she was, my granddaughter, bright, brilliant, all pink hair and mismatched socks. She threw her arms around me like she hadn't just skipped 2 holidays in a row. I laughed, the kind that cracks in the middle from disuse. And then I saw him. He stepped into view like a slow reveal, tall, shoulders like a doorframe, smooth skin, deep brown, buzz cut clean, jaw taut, dressed in black with boots too heavy for the porch. He didn't smile, just watched me calm, alert like he was reading me. "This is Jayden," Sophie said, practically bouncing. "My boyfriend." My what? My mouth opened, but the sound got lost in the weather inside me. He nodded once. Polite, Sophie winced. "Please don't freak out," she added quickly. "Mom and Dad have no idea." Oh, I knew Melissa would have fainted. Her husband would have called a family meeting. And here I was, barefoot, bathrobe slipping, mascara from 2019. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was looking at Jayden, at the way he stood, not cocky, not apologetic, just present. And those hands, rough, strong, capable, God help me. I remembered what capable felt like. My body betrayed me. I opened my arms and hugged him. He stiffened like no one had done that in a long time. I felt it in the way his breath caught, the way his arms hovered, unsure. But I pressed in just for a second, and he was warm, heavy, alive. When I pulled back, my hands didn't quite let go. They lingered on his shoulders, solid, wide, like he could carry things. Big things, things I hadn't dared ask to be carried in years. Sophie laughed, nervous and high-pitched. "Graham, seriously." I looked up at Jayden. He wasn't smiling. But his eyes, there was a shift, a pause, a beat too long before he blinked. "Well," I said, voice dipped in something velvety. "Any friend of Sophie's." He cleared his throat. "Nice to meet you, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am," I snapped, too fast, too real. His lips twitched, the first crack in that steady calm. "Just the corner, barely. You two staying the night?" I asked, already turning, pretending I wasn't flustered. "If that's okay," Sophie said, dragging in their duffel bags. "Oh, honey," I called over my shoulder. "This house has seen wilder things than 2 kids in love." I didn't look back, couldn't, because I already knew something had shifted, and I wasn't ready for what came next. The faucet started dripping again that night. It had been doing that on and off for a year, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to stay broken or be forgotten. Just a slow, rhythmic drop every 20 seconds, like a second heartbeat, like a reminder. Normally, I'd ignore it, wrap a towel around the base, tell myself I'd call someone eventually. But that night I stood there, watching it drop, pause, drop. I didn't move, didn't blink. Then I reached under the sink and dragged out the dusty red toolbox Sam used to keep. Most of the tools were missing, or rusted, or just plain useless. I set it on the counter anyway and waited. Jayden came down around 10, wearing a faded t-shirt and socks. His hair was damp. The house was quiet, except for Mr. Pickles snoring on the couch like an old man. "You need something?" he asked, rubbing the back of his neck. I pointed to the sink. "It's leaking again." Jayden stepped closer, squinted at the faucet like it had offended him. "You got tools?" I slid the box across the counter. He opened it, blinked, laughed once under his breath. "Vintage." "So am I." He glanced up, our eyes locked, his mouth curved. Just a little. He picked up a wrench, tested the weight. "Where's the shut-off valve?" "Under the cabinet, mind the dust." "And the spider, he's been renting space since 2020. Jayden knelt down, reached under the sink, and I leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, pretending I wasn't watching every movement, the stretch of his back, the way his arms moved with purpose, the quiet focus. He tightened something. The dripping stopped. I exhaled, didn't realize I'd been holding my breath. "Done," he said, standing. "That's it?" I asked. "A little too quick," he nodded. "Just needed a touch of pressure. It wasn't sealed properly." My voice dropped before I could stop it. "That makes two of us." Jayden blinked, then smiled, really smiled, wide and unexpected, like a door creaking open in the middle of the night. "You always flirt with plumbers?" he asked. "Only the ones who fix things without asking for a tip." He chuckled, leaned a hip against the counter. "You're something else." "I get that a lot," I said, brushing a crumb off the counter that wasn't there. The silence wrapped around us again. But it wasn't awkward. It was charged. He cleared his throat, eyes dropping to the tile. "Sophie said you were cool." I tilted my head. "Did she now?" "Yeah, said this would be better than some cheap motel." "And do you agree?" Jayden paused, his jaw flexed. "It's warm here." That hit deeper than I expected. I turned away, opened the fridge, pulled out 2 beers, handed him one. "You drink?" I asked. He caught it, smooth as anything. "Sometimes." I popped mine open, toasted the air. To slow leaks and fast repairs. He clinked the neck of his bottle against mine, took a sip. His eyes never left mine. There was no music, no candles, just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faucet, silent now, still. "I should head back up," he said finally, pushing off the counter. "Of course," I said. But before he reached the stairs, I called after him. "Hey, Jayden." He stopped. "If that faucet starts again, you come get me no matter what time." He nodded. "I will." And then he disappeared into the dark. I stayed in the kitchen, holding the cold bottle in both hands, wondering when exactly my heartbeat had started syncing with a stranger's footsteps. The morning sun poured in through the kitchen windows, golden and too honest. I was already dressed, hair brushed, mascara applied with a shaky but determined hand. My dress wasn't fancy, just snug enough to remember who I used to be. Pancakes sizzled on the griddle, bacon crisping beside them. The smell of maple syrup already thick in the air. I didn't cook like this for myself. Haven't in years. But today, It felt necessary. Jayden came down first, t-shirt rumpled, eyes still foggy. He paused in the doorway, blinking at the scene like he'd stepped into the wrong movie. "Coffee?" I asked, already pouring. "Sure," he said, voice low and morning warm. He sat at the table, hands wrapped around the mug. I handed him those hands. I tried not to look too long, tried to remember I was a hostess, a grandmother, not a woman simmering just under her skin. Sophie came down a few minutes later, hair a mess. Wearing Jayden's shirt like it was the most natural thing in the world. She kissed my cheek and grabbed a plate. Already rambling about some art protest she joined last week. I smiled, nodded, refilled her coffee, but my eyes kept drifting back. Jayden buttered his toast like it had wronged him, slow, focused, brow furrowed just slightly. I reached over to refill his coffee, letting my neckline do what necklines do when they've been ignored too long. "So, Jayden," I said, voice sweet as syrup, "you work with a lot of valves." He froze. Sophie groaned. "Grandma." Jayden choked on a laugh, wiped his mouth. "Yeah, mostly sinks, toilets." "Shocking," I said. "You seem more industrial." He cleared his throat. "Pipes are pipes." I said, sipping my coffee. "I suppose so." Sophie jabbed her fork into a pancake. "Can we not sexualize plumbing?" "I'm just making conversation," I said, blinking innocently. Jayden met my eyes, smiled behind his mug, not wide, but real. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, thick with everything unsaid. I stood to clear the plates, brushing close enough that Jayden had to shift in his seat. His fork clattered. I looked back. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked, tone soft, but knowing he nodded too fast. "Fine." Sophie watched us, her brows furrowed. "Why does it feel like I'm third-wheeling with my own grandma?" "Don't be dramatic," I said, tossing her a dish towel. "Dry these." I turned to Jayden. "You ready for that faucet?" He stood quickly. "Lead the way." I led him upstairs, heels clicking, heart louder. In the bathroom, I bent to grab the toolbox from under the sink, letting the back of my dress ride just enough to make a point. I heard his breath hitch. "Tools are in here," I said, straightening. "Need anything else?" Jayden crouched beside me, tool belt slung low, hands already moving with that quiet confidence. He didn't speak, just worked. I watched him in silence, the curve of his back, the crease in his brow, the way his forearm flexed when he tightened a bolt. "Your tools are vintage," he said finally. "So am I," I shot back. He snorted. "Still work though." "Don't worry," I said. "I do." He glanced up, our eyes locked. The faucet was fixed, but the room felt more broken than ever. "Pipes are corroded," he said, standing. "Might need a full replacement." "Replacement," I echoed. I was hoping for a little lubrication. He paused, blinked. "Grandma," he said softly, not sure if it was a question or a warning. I stepped back, hands raised. "I'm joking." Was I? His smile faded into something quieter, something real. And for one terrifying second, I didn't want him to leave that bathroom. Didn't want to go back to pretending I wasn't awake again. But I turned. because I'm still Evelyn Moore, and I'm not supposed to burn, not like this. The house was quiet again. Sophie had gone out to meet an old friend from college, Mr. Pickles was curled in a ball, twitching in his sleep. The faucet wasn't leaking. The floor didn't creak. Even the clock seemed to tick softer than usual. I lit a candle, lavender and eucalyptus, and unrolled my yoga mat in the center of the living room. My playlist clicked on, soft Stevie Nicks curling through the speakers like a whisper from another life. I stretched slowly, deliberate, every breath heavy with something unspoken downward dog triangle, half moon and then Malisana, a deep squat, elbows pressing knees wide, back straight, eyes closed, like I was preparing to birth a truth too big for language. That's when I heard him, a creak on the stairs, the quiet crunch of socked feet. I didn't move. Jayden froze halfway down, a bag of chips dangling from his hand. He stared, eyes wide, caught between concern and disbelief. You good?" "I'm fantastic," I said, holding the pose, arching one eyebrow. "This is Malisana, great for the hips, flexibility." He laughed under his breath. "You sure you're not stuck? You offering to unstick me?" That shut him up for a moment. Then he stepped closer, still holding the chips like a peace offering. "You do yoga a lot." "Took it up after Sam died. Figured I'd either drink myself into a corner or learn to breathe again." Jayden didn't speak. I shifted into a slow cat-cow, then flipped into a shoulder stand, legs high, shirt sliding. My lower back tattoo peeked out, something wild and thorny. He stared like he wasn't supposed to, but couldn't stop. "You're really good at that," he said finally, voice lower than before. "Thanks," I said, coming down onto the mat, rolling flat on my back. "It's the one thing I've stuck with besides regret." Jayden crouched next to me, close enough to smell the salt on his skin, the leftover citrus of whatever body wash he used. "You're not like I thought," he murmured. "You think I'd be old," he said honestly. "Tired, angry maybe." I laughed. All those things, Jayden just also curious, his head tilted. "About what?" "About what happens when you stop pretending you're done." We were quiet then, our breathing almost synced. And for a heartbeat, the air between us changed, thicker, hotter, like something humming just under the surface. He didn't move, neither did I then. "Sophie wants Doritos," he blurted, standing fast. I blinked, like waking from a dream. "She texted," he added, holding up his phone. "Said she forgot to grab snacks." "Of course," I said, pushing up slowly, every joint creaking. "Want her protest planning to go hungry?" He nodded. But before heading upstairs, he turned back. "You're really something else, Evelyn." And I didn't say a word, didn't have to, because in that room, filled with lavender and longing, something had already been said, loud and clear. Midnight was too quiet. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me like it was trying to hypnotize me back into stillness. But stillness was impossible now. My body buzzed, not with energy, but with awareness, of space, of breath, of him. Then I heard it, A thud upstairs, muffled laughter, a mattress protesting rhythm. My stomach twisted, uninvited don't. But my legs moved. The hallway was dark, cold. My bare feet whispered across the hardwood. I paused outside the guest room, light spilled under the door, broken by shadows moving. A soft gasp, then the springs again. I wasn't jealous. That wasn't it. I was haunted. 3 years since Sam's hands, Sam's voice, Sam's weight beside mine. I turned to go, then the door opened. Jayden stumbled out, shirtless, breath caught mid-throat, sweat still clinging to his collarbone. We froze. He blinked at me. Evelyn. I stepped back. The faucet, it's dripping again. I couldn't sleep. His eyes searched mine, quiet, calculating. Yeah, I'll check it tomorrow. I nodded too quickly. Good, it's urgent. Silence wrapped around us like fog. You sure that's all you came up for? Of course. I adjusted my robe. Just plumbing emergencies, you know how it is. He leaned against the doorframe. His skin glowed in the low light. His gaze didn't drop, didn't waver. Plumbing emergencies. We stood there, not speaking. Everything loud. Then Sophie called from inside, voice soft but real. Jayden, you coming back? He didn't look away from me, not right away. Yeah, he said, after a pause, be right there. Well, I whispered, backing toward the stairs. Let me keep you from your repairs. He almost smiled, wouldn't dream of it. But his eyes didn't say goodbye. They said something else, something I wasn't ready to name. I made it back to my room, closed the door, rested my forehead against the wood like it might cool the heat in my chest. What the hell are you doing, Evelyn? But then I laughed, quiet, unhinged, alive. He hadn't looked away. He hadn't looked ashamed. He'd looked amused, intrigued. Like maybe he saw what I'd buried under grief and sarcasm. And that, more than anything, terrified me. I called Brenda at 6 a.m. sharp. Emergency. I whispered into the phone. She grunted. What kind, medical or moral? Moral. 20 minutes later, she pulled into my driveway with her tackle box of hot wax and judgment. Smelled like lavender and mild regret, same as always. Brenda set up shop in my bathroom. Without asking, spread a plastic sheet over my dining chair and patted it like a throne. You haven't waxed since the Obama years. Don't judge me, just fix me. For who? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Because if it's the cable guy again, I swear. Brenda, I warned. She grinned. Right, no questions, just pain. It hurt, God. It hurt like hell. But when it was over, I felt smooth, dangerous, like something sharp had been unburied beneath the layers. I tipped her 50 to keep her mouth shut. She left with a wink and a warning. Sprain anything, Evelicious. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, hair brushed, lips red. A new dress clinging where it used to hang. My reflection didn't look young, but it looked alive. Breakfast was a performance. Pancakes stacked like architecture, bacon curled to perfection, strawberries glistening in neat rows. The house smelled like syrup and trouble. I clicked upstairs in heels I hadn't worn in 5 years and knocked on the guest room door like I owned the building. Rise and shine, lovebirds. Breakfast is getting cold. A groan, then another thud. The door cracked open. Sophie peeked out, hair wild, wrapped in Jayden's shirt. "It's vacation, Graham. Why are you like this?" "Because someone," I said, peering over her shoulder, "promised to fix my faucet today." Jayden sat up on the edge of the bed, bare back catching the sunlight. I watched his eyes find me and stay there. "Coffee's downstairs," I added, voice breezy, strong enough to wake the dead. Downstairs. Sophie inhaled pancakes like she hadn't eaten in days. Jayden sat quiet, shoulders tense, buttering toast with more force than necessary. I leaned over to refill his coffee, close enough for my perfume to do the talking. "So, Jayden," I said, soft, slow, "you handle a lot of valves in your line of work." He coughed. Sophie slammed her fork down. "Seriously?" "What?" I blinked. "I'm just asking about plumbing." Jayden cleared his throat, eyes flicking from his plate to my face. "Yeah, lots of valves." The air was thick with things unspoken. I stood, gathering plates. His eyes followed. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked. Low, he nodded. "Fine." Sophie glanced between us. "Why does it feel like I'm the third wheel here?" "Don't be silly," I said. "Now help me dry." I turned to Jayden. "Faucet now." He followed me upstairs. The hallway was quiet. My pulse was not in the bathroom. I bent to grab the toolbox from under the sink. Let the hem of my dress shift just enough. I heard him breathe in sharp, fast. "Tools are in here," I said, standing. "Need anything else?" Jayden crouched beside the sink. His hands moved through the tools, deliberate, slow. "You know," he said, holding up a wrench, "your tools are seriously outdated." I leaned against the counter. "So am I." He looked up. "But still functional." "Oh, absolutely," I smiled, "with the right touch." Jayden turned back to the pipes, jaw tight. The veins in his forearm rose as he twisted the valve. "Pipes corroded," he muttered. "Might need replacing." I sighed dramatically. I was hoping for a little lubrication, not a total overhaul. He froze, turned. "Evelyn," I stepped closer, not touching, but close enough for the air to shift. "You okay, Jayden?" I asked, voice honey thick. "You look flushed." He swallowed hard. "Just hot in here." Thought so. His hands faltered. The wrench clinked against porcelain. "You're playing with fire," he said, voice barely above a breath. I didn't back away. "I know," I whispered. And then we stopped pretending. It wasn't love, not the soft, familiar kind I once knew. Not the kind that built families and shared morning papers. It was something else. A flame that didn't ask questions, that didn't wait for permission. We stood there, still breathing hard. The silence between us heavier than the air itself. Jayden backed up first, running a hand over his buzzed head like he could shake it all off. I turned away, smoothing my dress with fingers that trembled a little too honestly. We didn't speak, couldn't. His eyes met mine one last time before he left the room, quiet, guarded, like he was afraid of what might come next, or worse, what already had, downstairs. Sophie's laugh broke through the walls like a song. I couldn't sing anymore. I washed dishes. I didn't need 2 wiped counters that weren't dirty. Mr. Pickles sat on the windowsill, tail twitching like he was judging the whole mess of me. Jayden stayed quiet all day. He helped Sophie with the garden, carried groceries, nodded when spoken to, but he didn't look at me, not once. Like distance might unwrite what had already been written across both our faces. And yet I felt him, in every room like heat from a stove long after the fire's out. By mid-afternoon, Sophie had taken over the kitchen, making some kind of lentil stew with way too much confidence. Jayden sat at the table, scrolling his phone. I watched them from the hallway, watched how easily they laughed, how naturally Sophie reached for his hand, and how carefully, how guiltily, he let her fingers wrap around his. I couldn't breathe right. I stepped out onto the porch, heart a tight fist in my chest. The sky was the color of steel wool, thick with coming rain. I sat down on the swing, wrapped my sweater tighter, and wished I'd never felt what I felt, because now I couldn't unfeel it later, after dinner. I offered to make tea. No one wanted any. Sophie turned on a movie. Jayden stayed beside her, their legs brushed, her head rested against his shoulder. I tried to focus on the screen, but all I saw were the things I had dared to imagine in the dark. When Sophie finally fell asleep on the couch, Jayden stood and stretched. His eyes flicked toward me. I followed him into the kitchen. The lights were off, only the glow from the microwave lit the room. I didn't speak, just leaned against the fridge, arms crossed. He kept his distance. I didn't plan any of this, he said quietly. I know, not that kind of guy. I know that too. He looked at the floor. You make it really hard not to feel things. I smiled, bitter, funny. That's exactly what I was afraid of. I should go back upstairs. You should, I said. But you're still here. He nodded once, then stepped past me, slow, careful. I didn't turn to watch him leave, didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't pretending I wasn't broken. I just wasn't sure how many more cracks I could survive. It started with a dish towel. Sophie found it balled up in the bathroom, soaked, tossed beside the guest sink. She brought it down with a wrinkle in her brow, held it up like a question. Why was this stuffed behind the faucet? I blinked too long. Leak, probably. She narrowed her eyes. You fixed that days ago. Jayden looked up from his coffee, eyes still tired. Sophie looked between us. Then it happened, the shift, the quiet turning in her gaze. She saw it, not all of it, but enough. That afternoon, while Jayden showered and Mr. Pickles slept on a pile of unfolded laundry, Sophie cornered me on the porch, her arms crossed, her voice low. Something happened between you two. I didn't answer, couldn't. Graham, she said, like pulling a splinter. Please don't lie to me. I met her eyes, and that was the mistake. She saw everything, the ache, the shame, the flicker of something I hadn't even named yet. Sophie stepped back like I'd slapped her. Oh my God, she whispered, you did. I didn't mean for, I brought him here, she hissed. I trusted you. You still can. No, I can't, she said, voice trembling, because I see you now. and I don't know what I'm looking at. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just walked inside. Jayden came down 10 minutes later, hair still damp, suitcase in his hand. He didn't say much, just stood there, waiting. I met him in the kitchen. Sophie was upstairs, the muffled thump of drawers opening and closing, her voice, high and broken, behind a closed door. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For being seen, for seeing you." I smiled, brittle. "That's the worst part, isn't it?" He nodded. "I don't hate you," I said. "You should, maybe, but I don't." We stood there in silence. The clock, ticking like it was measuring more than time. "I'll leave tonight," he said. "She doesn't want me here." "No," I said, "she doesn't." Jayden reached for the door, paused, looked back. "You made me feel real," he said. "Say that," I whispered, but he already had. He stepped out into the rain, and the screen door snapped shut behind him like the end of a sentence. I didn't cry, not yet. I just stood there, in the kitchen that still smelled faintly of soap and cinnamon, knowing something had broken. And I wasn't sure if it was me or the world I thought I'd rebuilt. Upstairs, Sophie's door slammed. And just like that, the house was quiet again. But not the same kind of quiet, this one. New things. Jayden left before sunrise. I didn't hear the door close, didn't hear the car start, only noticed the quiet had changed again. No footsteps, no cupboard doors creaking open, no second mug left on the counter. Still warm, Sophie was gone by noon. She didn't say goodbye either. She left a note, 4 words, scratched in her handwriting, like they were too sharp to write slow. "I'll call you later." She didn't. The first day I did nothing, just moved from one room to another, like I was looking for something I knew I wouldn't find. Folded blankets that didn't need folding, stared at the faucet. The damn thing wasn't dripping. Second day, I sat on the porch with Mr. Pickles curled in my lap and let the silence press against me until I couldn't tell where my grief ended and the air began. Third day, I trimmed the garden, cut everything dead, tore out the brown petals and dry stems with more force than necessary, got dirt under my nails, let my knees ache, let my back protest. But when I finished, the yard looked less like memory and more like space, a place where something new could grow. The fourth day, I opened every window in the house, let the air move through me, let the rooms breathe. I made coffee, for one, sat in Sam's old chair, didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't lie to myself either. I'd let something in a crack, a fire. And now I had to live with the smoke. I pulled out a notebook that evening, the kind with the stiff spine and yellowed pages, wrote one sentence. "I am not done." The pen shook, but the line stayed. That night, I slept without the TV on. The silence didn't press this time. It hovered, waiting. When I opened the drawer next to my bed, I found it, a folded piece of paper left behind, Jayden's handwriting, one sentence. Fixing that faucet was never the problem. I sat there, fingers pressed to the ink, heart slow but steady. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself smile, just a little, just enough to remember the shape of it, Then I got up, took a long, hot shower, and started cleaning out the guest room, not because I expected anyone, but because someday someone might come through that door. And next time, I'd be ready. Spring came back in small ways, not all at once, just a little greener in the grass, a little softer in the wind. The kind of spring that doesn't announce itself, just appears slow, gentle, like a second chance. I started walking again, just a few blocks at first, then around the park. Then further my knees complained, but I didn't listen. I bought myself a red windbreaker, something loud enough to feel brave in. One morning, I signed up for a dance class. Beginners welcome. Over 60 encouraged, belly dancing. Of all things, the flyer was taped to the grocery store bulletin board between ads for pet sitters and a piano tuner named Dawn. I showed up the next Tuesday. Didn't tell anyone. I danced like I was trying to remember what it meant to move just because I could. Sophie texted once. Just a photo of a mural she helped paint, no caption. I sent back a sunflower emoji. She didn't reply, but I knew she would eventually. Jayden never called. But sometimes, when I passed the aisle with the plumbing supplies at the hardware store, I smiled, not because of what happened, but because of what it woke up in me. The house stayed quiet most days. No dripping, no thuds upstairs, just the hum of the fridge, the occasional sigh of Mr. Pickles, the reliable creak of the porch swing. Then one Thursday, the faucet started leaking again. A slow, steady drip, not dramatic, just persistent. I stood in the kitchen, staring at it, didn't move, didn't sigh, just waited. And that's when it happened. The doorbell rang. I opened the door, not even thinking to check who it was. Jayden stood there, toolbox in hand. He looked the same, maybe a little older, maybe not. His eyes found mine like no time had passed at all. "You still need help with that other drip?" he asked. I didn't speak, just stepped aside. He walked in, took off his jacket, set the toolbox on the counter, paused. "I'm not here to fix anything," he said, quiet, sure. "I know. I just wondered if you still burn." I smiled wide, slow. "The fire never went out," I said. "I just stopped feeding it." He nodded, and the kitchen, that little ordinary kitchen with the stubborn faucet and second chances, held something new. Not a fire, but a spark enough.